My guest today's life has been filled with a lot of ups and downs, searching for safety, hope, and identity in the midst of much pain and at a huge cost. Thanks for joining us today, Sohayla.
Thank you so much for having me.
So grew up in Tehran and during the height of war.
I did, yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, I remember as a child you're born and raised into havoc. There's war all the time. There's uncertainty within the country. And I remember as a child going through places with my parents, and you always heard it in the backgrounds, hearing the war sirens and just how hard it was. And so my parents did form a plan to leave when everything looked like it was crumbling for them. They wanted to give me and my sister a better life, and they knew if they had stayed, it just would not work out the way that they wanted us to have a good life.
Paint this picture. So how old were you when you were living in Tehran?
I was about four when we left, yeah.
So close to, I have a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
So what was life like for a 4-year-old hiding?
Well, it sadly was normal because that's all we knew. We didn't know any different. There were moments where, for me it feels like moments, but I know long term there were probably more moments like that where we'd go to parks, we'd go to picnics, we'd have family functions and weddings and the fun stuff. But the trauma of being terrified, or like sitting in my grandmother's house watching TV and all of a sudden the house starts to shake and all the cousins and the kids are running into the doorways or under the stairs to hide, that overshadowed the joy. You know, it overshadowed life in itself. And it's what you became accustomed to know, that is what life was. So you just accepted it because that's all we knew. There wasn't anything different.
And faith construct in your family, what was that? What was
your so I grew up in a Muslim house, but my parents were more liberals. So they didn't like the fact that their country had fallen under an Islamic regime all of a sudden. So they're more like the liberal type. They wanted us to have choice. They wanted us to worship God, but not be oppressed with covering our hair and changing our clothes and everything. And so for them, it was really important for us to have choice, even though they still wanted us to practice Islam and fall under what they were raised, you know, traditionally through relatives and grandparents passed down to us.
And so your family flees. At one point you're in Torino, and this amazing story of how God kind of answered your father's prayer.
Absolutely, yeah.
Tell me about this.
Well, it was Christmas Eve, and I love how God just works, and he's like, I know how this is going to end out, even though you don't know. And my dad found himself in the streets winter, Christmas Eve, wandering, crying, knew that our money was, you know, low and we didn't have much left to, you know, go to the next country or however long it took to come to Canada. But we needed a visa and we didn't have the visa. And every day he would go to the embassy to get the visa, and every day he was denied. So he walked in the streets, found this huge church, sees this huge statue of Jesus, and he walked up to it and he just said, I know you're not my God. I know that we don't do anything to worship you, but you're a God of these people and you're God of this land. And I'm asking you to help me and my family out. And because I know you will, to honor you, I'm going to light a candle each year on the eve of your birth. Wow. He lit the candles, completely overwhelmed with emotions, left, and the very next day he went back to the embassy, and without even a blink of an eye, we had our visa. We were on our way to Canada. And since then, every year my dad did honor that, and he lit a candle every year. And now my husband and I, with our children, we continue that on. We light a candle every Christmas Eve, and we just give honor and glory to Christ for doing what he did for us.
So you enter into Canada, this brand new country, but start struggling with identity issues to the point where you want to take your life.
I did. It was hard. I felt like a black sheep growing up. I felt like I didn't belong within my own family. And it wasn't because I didn't feel loved or I wasn't loved, but I was different. I always tell people I was more Canadianized. You know, my sister and my brother wanted to hold on to our traditional roots, to be Persian, to practice our faith, which was fine. But for me, all my friends, like they went to Persian school. I never did. I wanted to stay in, you know, the playground or go out with my friends and have fun. I liked my new life. You know, the old was gone. I didn't have to worry about the war and being afraid to play in a park. And so I struggled with, how come everybody wants me to be this way, but I don't feel like I belong. I feel like I don't even belong in my family. I feel like I was meant to be somewhere different or live a different life. And none of it was bringing me any type of satisfaction. None of it was bringing me any type of wholeness, because I was completely empty inside. You know, I didn't have that life that the Holy Spirit gives us. And I just set out for a quest to learn. And through wrongful teachings and wrong friends coming into my life, I contemplated committing suicide numerous times. And every time I came so close to it, I couldn't. There was this deep heartache within me that was like, no, you can't, you can't. You just need to wait for me, you can't. And I'm so thankful that I never did. I'm so thankful I never went as far as I did, and I just stayed true to waiting for the Lord until he showed himself to me.
Well, when we come back, Sohayla is struggling with her identity when she meets a young man who changes her life forever. We'll be right back.